Good evening. Once again, I would just like to mention that if anybody would like to sponsor any of these shiurim, please contact me on Facebook, or you can feel free to email me at cslando@gmail.com. So there are two types of revelations. There is the sovev, the type that surrounds, and then there is mimale, the type that fills. And the Biyam Darkecha says that understanding this is one of the most fundamentally important principles of Kabbalah. And that is that there is a certain light that surrounds the worlds. Again, in Kabbalistic terms, Sovev Kol Almin. And that's the understanding that everything is godliness. Everything in existence is God's infinite light. And this is a very deep and profound level of understanding that most people do not succeed in achieving. And that's why it's referred to as sovev. It surrounds because it is not part and parcel of our regular, simple, everyday experience. The second aspect is what we discussed in our last shiur about the line light, the light that penetrates into the void to give life and light based on what each item within the void is capable of receiving or perhaps deserves to receive. And that's called Mimale Kol Almin. That's the light that fills the worlds. And it's the concept of the spiritual life that brings life to everything within the tzimtzum, within the void created by the constriction. And again, this is a much more limited revelation of God's light as compared to that Sovev Kol Almin, the light that surrounds all the worlds. Our primary connection to God is with the line light, the light that fills the world inside, because that's the spiritual light and understanding that in our everyday experience we have the ability to grasp. However, we do have the ability to a limited extent to also grasp the or that's Sovev Kol Almin, the light that's not part of this world, but is outside and surrounds everything. And our primary concentration is to experience both of them, the line light on a regular basis and the surrounding light on a more occasional basis. In a footnote, he elaborates a little bit that these are the two forms of revelation of God's existence that we experience in this world. That the line light, which gives us light, that gives us the ability to connect to God experientially and to be able to experience God's involvement in all the things with which we are involved in our life. And by examining the line light, we can see how God directs things. It can strengthen our emunah, our belief in God. So that gives us, through that line light, a connection to the infinite. The light that surrounds is more something that we have knowledge of intellectually, as we mentioned earlier this week, rather than experientially. But it's what tells us that there's nothing that exists that is outside of God. And it gives us the ability to connect to God by completely nullifying ourselves before God. So it's, again, as we mentioned beforehand, necessary to balance each of these revelations. The one that tells us through our experience to connect to God, and the one that informs us that we can have the knowledge and understanding that God is the source of all existence. Primarily, as we said, we're supposed to be connecting to the limelight and use it to reveal God's presence in the hiddenness and within nature. More than that, he points out that over time, the more we focus on this and the more we have those experiences within which we connect to the surrounding light that is outside of our everyday experience, the more that surrounding light changes for us and becomes light that is permeating existence. Through our understanding, we change our perspective of the light. And that which we initially only understood intellectually, but by putting in the work, we can come to a point where we understand it experientially as well. Thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful evening.